not in India. So we're gonna start with whatever we have left yesterday, and we'll just have a recap kind of thing. Okay. So everybody can see my screen, I guess. So I'm gonna just do a small recap. So we were looking at servlets technologies, and we discussed about how servlets are useful in development of web applications when you compare it with desktop applications, and we have seen what are the differences between web applications and distributed applications. Basically, web applications are the ones which will not have the security, the EJP concept, and the RMI concept, but still they are used to you know run the web applications, the web servers. But enterprise applications, on the other side, you will have some advantages like you know clustering, load balancing. The clustering and load balancing point we have not discussed earlier. So yesterday. So the point here is in enterprise application, what happens is, for example, if there is a site which is expecting 10,000 customers every day, but on one day, because of some offers or some other thing, some other reason, because of the product, maybe like nearly 1 lakh people has logged into their accounts, and trying to buy the same product or some other product. But what happens at that time is the server will be filled with many requests, and if you talk about technically, it will not be able to create that many objects to send responses or let the actual user to log in. So at that point of time, what happens is the server may crash. There are two possibilities. One is the server may crash, and the other one is you will not get the response as you are expecting. You keep on logging in, you will not get anything. So these kinds of errors may come up. So what happens at that time, if you're using enterprise applications or distributed applications, you can opt for load balancing. Load balancing is nothing but whenever the server is full of the requests, then you can configure another server to the same web application, which will take the load. That is called load balancing. If the load is more, the load will go to the next server, and then you can it's like deviating the request to the other server where it can handle any number of requests. In the same manner, you can maintain load balancing on a multiple applications, multiple servers. But for example, it happened in India. So I think 2 months back, couple of months back, where Flipkart has a sale on one day, and so many people have logged in, like nearly 1 million people have logged in, and they could not at that point of time handle the request. They did not expect that much response. So everybody was not happy with that service, and they're given bad feedback. So they came up with a new solution saying, next time we will expect many number of users, and then we'll maintain that many servers so that we can handle that many requests. And this happens on the fly with the help of distributed applications, where the load balancing actually happens, so that one server will not actually hit with that many number of requests, so that some other servers which we configure depending on the server maintenance, that will come into picture and it will handle that many applications. So that advantage is there in distributed applications when you compare it with web applications. That's why if you take any enterprise applications which are running in actual companies, they'll be using IBM WebSphere, WebLogic, instead of using Tomcat server, because Tomcat has very limited usage and features. So even if the development happens in Tomcat, sometimes the deployment will happen in other distributed application servers. Okay, so that is one major advantage that I can tell you as an experienced guy. And so we have looked at client-server architecture, entire two-tier couple of classes back, and we have seen how the client and the server actually interacts with the help of internet. So since we will be using our local machine, our local browser will actually act as the internet. It will connect to our local machine, and then it will send the request to the server, and the response comes back. Okay, so this is the basic it is easy for understanding. You can put all the complicated terms and jargon, but this will be very simple to understand and easy also. Okay, and we have seen what is the difference between get and post methods in using HTTP methods, and then the servlet technology. We have seen how you can have a basic steps to define a web application. Okay, so we have seen the directory structure of a web application. We'll have a look at it again, and then there's a deployment descriptor definition where it is called the web.xml file, which is predefined from Eclipse, and we'll have a look. We had a look at it also. We'll look at it again, and then the web application process. This is nothing but the Java files, your JSP files, your HTML files, and then you start the server and access the web application. So a Tomcat information directory or any other thing, we have already seen it. So web apps is the folder where all the web applications are deployed, and the deployment will be taken care by Eclipse. You don't need to worry about that. So I'll start the Eclipse now. It's going to take a minute. So creating servlets, we stopped at we have seen all the three. How do you create a servlet using servlet interface or abstract class or a HTTP servlet abstract class. So we'll have a look at that. It will be like a recap, for example. So yesterday's class we have seen how you can configure the server and how you can start it. So let me. Okay. So now we have added a server with the help of the server wizard, and then we have created a first, a sample one example. Is it fine? I'll show you the same example, or we'll look at some other examples.
Yeah, it is fine, no problem.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'll write a simple, steps how you can write. Let me increase the font. Okay, the first step is writing the servlet using the three techniques, either by using the servlet interface or by generic servlet or by HTTP servlet. Okay, so that would be the first step, and the second step is overriding the request method. Depending on the technique that you use, like out of this three, if you use servlet, you have to override service method. If you use generic servlet, is the same service method. If you use HTTP servlet, we have to override do-get.toPost. Okay, so now overriding the request method is something which is dependent on the first step, and the last one is configure web.xml file. And this internal has two parts. One is defining the servlet tag with servlet name and servlet class. Okay, and the next one is servlet mapping with servlet name, whatever you define, and the URL pattern, whatever you want to configure the URL pattern to the servlet. Okay, and then send the request, get the response. So now these steps, is everywhere it is common. You have to write the first servlet, okay, and using the three techniques, and then after that you have to override the service method do get or do post, or the service method in generic servlet, and then later on, so now you have written the servlet. So how can you invoke a servlet? In what way you can invoke a servlet? There's only way by using a URL pattern. You have to map it to a servlet. I mean, to and fro, like a servlet to a URL mapper and URL mapping to a servlet. So this is how you can access the servlet that you have just created. And that change needed to be done in web.xml file using servlet tag. Okay, and after that, you have written the servlet class, and what is the URL pattern? That can be done with the help of servlet mapping. So now, as a developer, these are the three things you need to worry about. Not worry about. These are the three things you need to code or develop. Okay, and then after that, the send request and get response will automatically come if you do this first three steps perfectly. Okay, so now we're going to look at the first step. Instead of just going around the files, we'll look at the first step so that you will be clear what we are going to do the next and what we have already done. So the first step in this example would be creating a servlet with the help of servlet interface. Okay. Okay. So servlet interface is an interface which has 5 methods inside it. If you see, it is coming from Java x.servlet package. Till here it's packaged, and after that you have this interface. Okay, and this is coming from the JDK, and there are 5 methods inside the servlet interface. What happens if you implement an interface? Generally, what happens if you use an interface? Let me create a sample project.
Hi, this is Karthik. I got a transaction failed yesterday.
Sometimes
my transaction ID is
let me name this.
100
Okay.
and 00. Yeah, 5 zeros, 1 5 zeros. No.
So I'm going to write an interface where it has maths. Okay.
Yeah. 1855 699
So
43.
Everybody knows, I guess, what you can write in a interface. You can just define the method declaration. You can't do any other thing. Okay. So the return type. Okay, this is a maths interface where you have add and multiply. So it happens like that. Say for example, I'm a project manager and I've given you a task saying that you have to implement this interface and you can write your own add and multiply methods. Okay, I mean, we know that add will only add the numbers and multiply will actually do the product, but how do you do it? If there are 3 numbers, you may do it in a single shot, or you may do first 2 integers at one shot and the next one by coming the resultant to the third variable. So there are so many different ways. I mean, this is a simple example, guys, and you have to, maybe you'll be thinking, is this the way we work in the real project? But that's different. But to your understanding, I'm taking this example because if you want to understand the servlet directly implementation, it will be just like a recap. Okay, so now if I tell you that you have to implement the interface method, and someone may come up with their class saying my class. Okay, this could be any name. Okay, and it has public void main. Okay, so now this class I will implement the maths class. So what happens when you implement the maths class generally? Because in maths class there are 2 methods that doesn't have a body. You need to create a body in the next concrete class. Concrete class is nothing but the class where you define all the method declaration. So now Eclipse is directly saying please add the unimplemented methods. Otherwise, this will be a compilation error, because if you are using an interface concept, you have to override all the methods defined in the interface. So now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and click on add unimplemented methods. So it will give me this piece of code. So it is directly saying override, stating that we are overriding it from some other class. In this case, it is the interface. Okay, so we'll remove this studio. So now there are no compilation errors. This means you can write anything here. This is your implementation. It depends on the developer, that whatever implementations he wants to do. He can multiply using some other technique, or maybe writing some algorithm, or maybe writing some for loops. Anything is possible depending on the implementation part. So that is the reason we don't force the user to do only this implementation if you are using any interface. We just leave it to the developer. Whoever is implementing maths interface should have add and multiply as their basic needs. So that is the reason the implementation is up to the developer. In the same manner, for example, you take servlet interface. In our, this will be our maths class, and there are 5 methods which are abstract that are defined in servlet. So when you implement that in your concrete class, what should you do? You should define the implementation for all of them. Like the implementation is first one, it can be anything, as I said. So that's why whatever you write inside is okay, but you have to give it a body, since there's no implementation in the servlet interface. Okay, so I'm going to show you the servlet API now. So this is the servlet interface. If you see, it is an interface. It is available in javax.servlet. So I think you guys have visited this page once at least, because this is a Java API and you'll be using it every time you get it down. Like what are the methods available in string class, something kind of thing. So here also you can come and see. So now it is an interface servlet. Okay, you see all the methods here: destroy, get servlet config, get servlet info, init, and service. So these are the predefined methods which are defined inside the interface. So whenever you implement an interface, this method should have some method body. Okay, and that is what we have done in this example. So I'm implementing the servlet interface, and then I'm overriding all the methods defined in this servlet interface. Okay, so now, and the main important thing that you can look at is the service method, which will be called at the time of request processing. So the request processing, basically it happens since you are using servlet interface. Tomcat will understand that service is the method where the processing of the request is actually happening. So that is the reason it will directly come into the service whenever the browser requests something from the browser, and it is handled by the Tomcat, and it comes to the service, and then it is rendered as per the business logic. And in service, actually it will be not this simple. It will be a business logic or some logic depending on your requirement. But for now, since we are doing in a class and you have to understand it better, we are doing all these kinds of exercises. Okay, and we will have a look at it, how it is being done. So now what we have done, we have seen the first technique, how you can create a servlet from this out of this 3 steps. So now I'll just underline this. Okay, so now we are done with this first step. Now the next one, overriding the request method. The request method is nothing but the request processing method, because it is different in other parts. So this is done. No, the next one is, we will come with generic servlet and HTTP servlet following this 3 again, but now we are doing with servlet. So the next one we have web.xml file. So in web.xml file, the first step, the servlet tag is this, and the next one, servlet mapping, is defining the URL package. In the first step, what we have to configure is the servlet name. Okay, forget about this load on pseudo master. So the servlet name is the first servlet. What happens in some cases is, for example, if your class is in a package saying any package, okay, say com dot xyz dot abc dot first servlet, then you have to mention the whole package here. Otherwise, it will not be able to understand, because web.xml file will be under web.inf. Okay, and the classes will be in this place. So you have to mention in web.xml file the whole fully qualified path. Fully qualified path is nothing but the whole package and the class name where it is located. Okay, and after that you have to give a short name to it, and we call it as a servlet name according to web.xml file. So first step is done. So this one is done. Servlet tag, servlet name and class. Okay, and then servlet mapping with the same servlet name and URL pattern. Okay, so coming back to Eclipse again, so second step, servlet mapping tag we have taken, and the two things that you do here is the same name as what you have configured in servlet, and then a URL pattern. A URL pattern will be helpful to configure a URL pattern, I mean a pattern from browser to the servlet. Now if you look from bottom to top, so top to bottom will be our development, but what happens when a request comes from the browser? It happens like this. The servlet, so when the URL mapping, now the user has clicked www some slash dot home. So what happens now? The URL pattern will come into picture, and whatever servlet name that it has matched, it will go and check the entire web.xml file for the servlet name in the servlet tags. Okay, and since it will be matching with one servlet in our case, that servlet will be picked up. Okay, in our case it says servlet interface, and then the request processing method will be executed. So this is how it's done from development point of view and from the request processing point of view. Okay, so now we have done everything to send a request to the servlet, how you can get a response. Okay, so we'll start the server and then see how we can do it. Let me add it again. Okay, we have added it. We'll start it. Okay, it started. So one second. I think this. I mean, the change that I'm doing here is picking up the deployment path so that it will understand. I mean, it will pick up our application so that we'll be able to run it. Okay. So see, if you see here, even if it started, there's no application that is associated with it. That's why we are not able to get any response here. Okay, so we'll stop it for now, and then from sample 1 we'll click on run on server, and then we can see that. Okay, so next, so it is on the server now. We'll click on finish. The server will start, and then we can access it from the URL. Okay, so now what we have to do is, we sample 1 is our application context, and home is what we are looking at. Okay, so now there's a message that is coming up from the servlet. So this is how basic call from the browser to the servlet, and from the servlet to the browser we are sending it back again. Okay, and in yesterday's class I have mentioned the servlet request and servlet response are the predefined objects which are coming from the Tomcat server, and the request object will have the user input given in the browser. For example, if there is a form where it asks you a couple of details, and then it will ask you to submit the form. So how it is how is it being sent from the browser when you enter something to the server? That would be a question coming into our mind if you think in a technical way. So what happens here is, say for example, if there are 10 form fields in your in a form, and then you enter something into it, and when you click on submit, the request object will be created by the browser. In every browser, actually, it's not only one browser, and the request object along with the data that is available in the form will be sent over to this underlying server. Okay, since it is Tomcat now, for us, we will use servlet request and response, since it is servlet technology, and the request object now should have, as I'm saying, that it should have all the inputs given in the browser. And how about response? So servlet response is again a predefined class which is available in servlet technology, wherein it will create a response dynamically and send it back to the server. We can't see the request being coming, or how it is being sent to the service in the servlet interface like we do in core Java. Like if you send something, you can call it, and then you can see the arguments. But here, who is calling service method? So the service method is being called by the Tomcat server. Okay, first thing is done. So who will be saving my form? And your form is available in an object called as request object, which is created by the browser and then sent it back to the Tomcat. So using the request object, you can get all the inputs given in the form field. So with this example, we'll be looking at a form where the user enters the username and password, and then when he clicks on submit, that username and password will be sent to the service method, since you're using servlet interface. And then from getting, how do you get it and how can you write that, we'll go and look in a minute. Okay, and one more important thing that I wanted to tell you is, for example, if there is a home screen page for your application, say if your home screen is login.html or login.jsp, okay, so how do you configure that? For example, see now sample 1 will give me error, not now. See, in our case, it is actually giving me the, okay, I'll write from the beginning so that it will not be confused. Let me restart the server so that you can see what is happening if I click on sample 1. Okay, it's restarted. So now generally what we expect, if you click till sample 1, no, now you know only sample 1 as your application name. So now you go in there, you go there and click on localhost 8080, whatever port your Tomcat is running, and then the application context sample 1. So what happens if it is something like this? Whenever you want to have a landing page for your application, there are two ways you can do it. One is by writing index.html in the webinf level. Okay, so that is one way. I mean, it is a standard way. And the other one is you can configure whatever JSP or HTML you want to show with the help of welcome file list. Okay, so this is a new tag, guys, and this tag is done only once per application, because you set the home screen for one application only one time. You don't change the home screen every time you want to change. I mean, it is not good that you change the screens frequently, and with the home screen it's always the case. You don't change it because it will be only one screen. Whenever I log into, for example, www.google.co.in, I'll just see the Google image and then a text box for search. It is always the same. So in order to achieve that, what you can do is you can mention the welcome file list tag, and inside that you can mention what is the file that you want to show. Okay, so in our case, what I'm going to do is, first we'll see, there are two techniques again. I said first we'll see how you can do it without welcome file and by creating a index.html here. Okay, so let me create a HTML file, index.html, and this would be a landing page. Okay, so I'll click on finish. Okay, so it's saved, and then let's restart. Oh, there's an error in first submit. Okay, we have to run it again. Okay, all the errors are gone. Yeah. Okay, restart is required since we have changed some code in Java. Okay, so it is starting now, and you can see sample one is already deployed in under our Tomcat from Eclipse. So now if you go and see, if you click here, it should be showing you the welcome page in index.html. One second. Okay, so it is not under, since I told you inside WebINF everything is a private folder, and the private folder can be accessed only from web.xml file using some URL pattern. Outside WebINF it is all public folder, and you can access it without any problem. So that is the reason it is not WebINF, I'm sorry, it is outside WebINF under web content. Okay, so if you place index.html, then it will be automatically picked up by Tomcat as your home screen, and then it will be displaying that. So hello, there is our index.html. If you see here, there's nothing else. Okay, so this is like you can configure your home page. Okay, and the other technique that I was talking here is, so we'll remove this index.html. If it is there, it will always pick up the index.html as your content page, as your main page. Okay, so we're gonna delete it and write welcome. Oh, sorry. Welcome file list, welcome file, and then what is the file that you want to show to the user at the time of as a home screen. So what I'm doing here is I have written a home.html, or I can rename this as once again. Okay. So we have login.html, wherein we have a form, a simple form. Okay, a simple form is having a username and a password, and there's a button called submit button. So the submit button, what happens is when you click on the submit, the action form will be called, and since the action tag is responsible for sending the request to the server, and we want a servlet to be called, we want our first servlet where we are implementing the servlet interface, that servlet should be called I am giving that URL pattern. See, it's the same URL pattern that we have configured for the first servlet. If you come to web.xml file, it is star home. So it's the same URL pattern. Whenever it is called, all this form fields, I've told you, right, just a minute, that the request object will pick up all the form fields and send it over to the server. So now in this example, whatever form fields, now they are just two, since it is a login page. So all those two parameters will be sent to the server with the help of request object. And how it is done? It is done by the browser and the Tomcat, cooperation or coordination, whatever you call it. But you have to mention the same URL pattern, whatever you have configured there, wherever you want to submit the request. Okay. So now, and you may be thinking about what is this star. The star is nothing but, I'm just saying, append whatever is there in here and then append home. So now I'll restart it again. Okay, so since I've made some changes, so I've added this welcome file list. Okay, where I have mentioned, I have not mentioned. Login.html. Okay, so the login.html is the welcome file where I want to show it when the user logs in first time to the application. Okay, I'll stop this. Okay, I'll repeat the steps again. We are trying to show the a default page. We want to demo the server. Okay. Yeah, we want to show a default page at the time of the user entering into our application. So whatever we can do, we have done it using index.html by placing it outside web INF. So that is first technique. The second technique is how you can do it with the help of welcome file list tag, which is available in web.xml file. So there you can mention the path, whatever page you want. So this is the page I want to show it whenever the user logs into this application. So this is the only change we have done, and login.html should always be there. So the login, we'll look at the submission in the next step, guys, but just look at this welcome file list. We'll look at the submission next. Okay, so first we'll do one thing at a time. So now this is just trying to show the login.html as the index page. So we have stopped the server. Let me restart, and it will automatically synchronize whatever changes that I have made, and it will deploy it in the local Tomcat server, and then we can see what is happening with this welcome file list. Okay, it is started. Now if I click this, what would we be expecting as a developer? We would be expecting login.html as a home screen. Okay, now this is the login.html screen, and there are username and password. Just forget about whatever you have, but this is how you can do it. If you have do you have any questions on this, on these two techniques, how you can show the index page? Okay, I'll take it as an S. Sorry, I did not give you time to unmute yourself and ask me. But yeah, anyways, if you have any question, you can ask me anytime. Okay. Now the next part is what we're going to look at is the next part we are going to submit request. Okay, how are you going to submit a request object? Okay, so how you can do that? So now with this same application, whatever we have done, we'll do it. So we have a form which is our index, which is our home screen page. Now here what I have done, I have taken two inputs. One is username and the other one is password, and there is a button which will submit the form. So I hope you all guys know how you can submit a form. So the form tag should be there if you want to submit a form, and then some action should be happening when you click on submit. So this submit method and action are tightly linked. So whenever you click on the submit, this action will get into picture, and this URL pattern will come in the the URL bar. Okay, so that is how the form tag is configured in here. So now the requirement is for now how you can send the username and password to the browser. So from day one, I'm saying the servlet interface will have a default request, servlet request, and the servlet response object. And how come this will be mapped to the servlet request? Okay, so now the action, again, this is a URL pattern. This URL pattern should be configured in web.xml file under the servlet mapping, and this servlet mapping should be mapped to a servlet class, which is the first servlet in our case. And now coming to first servlet, there will be a service method which will override and take the inputs. Okay, inputs are nothing but the form fields. Now, since once you click on the submit, this form will be called. That means the first servlet will be called, and the servlet request object will have the username and password. So the next question is, okay, Aditya, I understand that you say that will be sent back to the server in the form of request object, but how do I get the username and password? There is nothing that I mentioned there, like with this name or that name. How can I get it? So for that answer, what we'll do is we'll have a look at the login.html page again. So here, if you take a simple input type text, so this is the username, right? And the most important element in order to deal with forms when you want to get it from the request object submitted by the browser is the name of the particular input tag. So this name, whatever name that I've given, this is what we'll change this to username. We'll change this to user password. Okay, so these are some names that I've given. So this is one name, and this is other. Okay, now with the help of this name attribute value, we will be getting those things, I mean those two input fields into the servlet with the help of request object. And how you can get it, we'll see them. So now you have this request object, right? This is a default request object. What is the method to use to get it? So everything, if you have seen, we'll define setter getter methods and then get the value from it. So in the same manner, there's a method in request object by name get parameter. So this parameter method will take a string value, which is nothing but your name attribute value, which is you define in the login.html. Okay, so this name attribute is username here, and in the request object I use get parameter method to get the username or whatever you define in the form. Okay, so this is how they are related, and get parameter actually returns a string value, so we'll take that in string. I'll name it as uname. Okay, and after that, now how you can get the password. The password you can get it again with the help of this name attribute value, which is user password here. So it will be again a string, and then we'll just name password, and again the same method request dot get parameters. So what you have to do is we have to give the name attribute value. So now this is how you can get the username and password or any other form values which you have given on the browser. Okay, and so we'll we generally don't display passwords, but for your understanding how it is happening, we're just displaying passwords. But I guess in normal scenarios, how it happens is whenever the user enters some password, it will be converted in JavaScript itself for some Java technology by using SHA method. SHA will actually encrypt the password, and whenever you're creating a form for that application, your password will be saved as a encrypted one itself in the DB. It will not be saved as if your password is ABC123. It will not be saved as ABC123 because that's a security concern. So all passwords will be encrypted and saved in the database if they want to save it in the database. So now here, since it's a small application, we'll print the password. There is no problem with that. and we'll write hello. Well, this is an output. Welcome username. Okay, so this username is the name that you enter at the first step. So now what is happening? There's a login form. I give some username and I give some password. I click on submit. The URL pattern will be invoked from the web.xml file, and it will go to first servlet, and then the first servlet service method will be called. So in here, between that thing happen, the form values are being you can say stored in the request object by Tomcat itself. You don't need to worry about it. And how you can get the username and password is using get parameter method and passing the name attribute given in the HTML page, and then a password is also for this. It's the same, and then we are just printing the two values and then outputting the username whatever the user enters. So this goes back to the browser and it will display you most hopefully hello, welcome, and whatever username you give. Okay, so I'll print John and password is password for now. So whenever I click on submit, you have to observe the URL also, because the URL pattern is going to change now with /home, and then it go to first servlet. Okay, welcome. Okay, we'll look at this. But if you see here, the /home is the URL pattern that we have mentioned, and the username and password are being sent in the URL because we do not follow any security for that. But if you use do post method, then you will not see the username and password in the browser. So that's not a concern now. But all you have to think is how you can send it. So if you look closely, this username is uname is there, right? And the pwd are the ones that you mentioned in login.html. Okay, so username and password. I think this is not deployed correctly. It is asking for me to restart. So we have done the development. I should have restarted it. Okay, so we'll see by restarting the application how it is working. Then the null problem will also be solved. Okay, so again we got this. We'll give see the username equal to Blaze and password equal to ABC123. That is what we got, and in the console also the username is, why it is coming as null? Are we not giving the same name?
To give the uname over there.
No, it is the same, this one, it's the same one, whatever you mentioned here. Let's change this to you. No, it should be same. Let me see that one more time. I'll do one thing, I'll stop. Okay, I'll remove this. I guess it is showing me the other example. I'll clean this. I'll clean the project also. These kinds of things happens always with Eclipse and with Tomcat combination. So you have to clean every time you change something like this.
And
okay, it is done.
Have an option of add or remove this Tomcat
for we have no you can select the server and delete it, and then we have add also.
Add and remove, right? So maybe you can add a file system. Add and remove.
Oh, add and remove. Yeah, we have add and remove here. Yeah, you're right.
So
I was thinking about this.
Add it from there.
Yeah, no, I was trying to run this on the server directly like this, but we'll add it. No problem. Okay, so we add it and then finish. Stopped. So we have added it and now we have to start it. Okay, so start. This should work fine. Username, name, this username the same, this username the same. Okay, so we got this. we'll give Blaze, we'll give KNABC 0987 317. Ah, it is still coming as null. Hello, welcome null. But see, the username is being sent to the request object with uname, but we are trying to get it with username. Why is it happening? Why is it happening? Because I have to close the browser, remove the cookies. Earlier it is uname, that is why it is not showing like that. Now after clearing the browsers, we'll be definitely getting it. It is just the cache problem with the UI. Okay, clear browsing data. Done. Close the browser all over. Open it. Okay, we got the form. Let's see the view source, how it is. So we can see the view source by right clicking on it. Okay, now we got the username. This time it works fine for us. Okay, so let's give John ABC 091234. Okay, there you go. Okay, it was actually picking up the earlier session's username when we run it for the first time. It was uname, right? I changed it to username, so that's the reason it didn't work. But once you clear all the cookies and all such stuff, it is going to this servlet and sending it back the username that you just entered. So this is one way you can send the request parameters to the Tomcat server and from there to the servlet. Okay, so this first thing is done. The password is ABC something. Yeah, we can see the print statements in the console, John, ABC, and all that stuff. Now, out of these 3 steps, we have done with the 3 steps. We're done with the whole 3 steps, but we'll look at generic servlet now. Okay. So, so the first step. What is our first step? If you're writing the generic servlet, you have to write the servlet first. Okay. So it is already written, I guess. Okay, generic servlet is here. Okay, so there's a spelling mistake. I changed that. So now I've taken a class and I'm extending from a generic servlet. So this generic servlet is again having a couple one abstract method which you need to override. That is the service method. Okay, and so this generic servlet, guys, it is actually implementing the servlet interface like we have done using servlet interface. But what is happening here is since generic servlet is an abstract class, what it does is to improve the burden on the developer. It actually took the pain to override all the methods from the servlet. Okay, and it just put the service method as abstract. So if you go and see the generic servlet API, okay, I mean I'm showing you in this API is because so that you will also get familiar with the Java docs, because this is a major help for every Java developer that is out there who can get a lot of knowledge from the APIs. I mean, APIs are nothing but the classes and all other stuff where you can go and see what is the method, what it does, what is the string class, and string class does have so many methods, everybody says that, but you don't know how many numbers. In number, then you can come and see here. Okay, so this is like that. So now we are coming to generic servlet. It is a class which is implementing the servlet interface. Okay, and here you see there's so many methods, but only one abstract method. Okay, which Abstract method means it will not have any method implementation. It will not have the body. It will just have the uh, you know the empty body. Okay, so the empty body will be having nothing, and you need to implement the same, if you want to extend that class. Okay, so that is what we are doing in generic servlet extension. Okay, so now see, this generic servlet class is being extended by our class, and then the service method, since it's abstract, we are overriding it using @override. I mean, this is annotation just to understand that we are overriding service method, and then the servlet request and response are similar. There's no change in it, but this method implementation should be done by the developer who is extending from generic servlet. And this concept is an inheritance concept. Uh, like if you are implementing an interface, you have to implement all the abstract methods which are defined in the interface, and if there is any one abstract method again and you are extending from that class, then you need to override that one also. I mean, this will come in core Java concept, as like we have discussed about interface, right? So this is like that. So moving on, first using generic servlet we have done. We are what we are doing is we are one second. Yeah, so we are doing everything same. We have not changed anything inside the method implementation. There's nothing complicated here. It is just printing the message if that URL pattern hits it. So now we are done with the creation of generic servlet. Second step is overriding the request processing method. There is overriding the service method in generic servlet example. And later on, we have to talk about the web.xml file configuration. Let's open Eclipse and see how it can be done. So there are two steps again. First one is writing the servlet tag. We have done that. We have given a name as second, and then just generic second class. Generic second class is our class which is extended from generic servlet class. Abstract class, and the second one is mapping the URL pattern with the servlet name. Okay, so now second slash is the URL pattern. If you come in the URL pattern is all done, and then send the request, get the response. So this is common. Now if you read from the back, this second URL pattern is mapped with generic servlet. Whenever this URL hits, the Tomcat will pick up this class, and if you come here, it will execute the service method. It will print something. So now we will restart it. Started. So the URL pattern here is second. Class not found exception, because this we have changed the class name. We have to name it same here. So let's restart it. The string is very small. It's actually coming from the generic servlet here. If you change this to h1 tag, which is HTML, let's see here. And it's we'll look at the form example also. It will be the same. When you refresh it, it's not happening. Restart. you see it is coming a little bigger because I've changed the text to which one. So now we'll see the form example here. Okay, so for that, what you have to do, you have to go change the URL here. Okay, because we are calling the generic servlet and the URL pattern is different. So we'll do that here. And so again, request to take request to get parameter. It will take the username as it is in the string password. Request dot get again password. Okay, so we will print the same thing. This is from Germany. So what we're doing here is we are doing the same thing as we have done in Servlet interface. So we are getting it with the help of get parameter method from request object, and then we are sending it back to the browser with the help of request with response object. Okay, so start this way. So now the URL pattern is second submit. But the problem is we have to come from the beginning because index.html page is changed, is mapped to our sample. So we'll get this. Okay, now when you click on submit, the URL pattern will be sending to second URL pattern, which is mapped to the generic servlet, and you are getting whatever you are in the browser itself. Okay, so this is how it works for generic servlet. I'll give you a work, so that you will also work on something. I want you to do the same example with HTTP servlet. Okay, I want you to explore like HTTP servlet we have discussed yesterday. What you can do is you can override either doGet or doPost. Okay, so we are extending HTTP servlet. You have to either extend or override either doGet or doPost. So you have to do that on your own, and then if you don't get it, we'll definitely discuss. But first thing I want you to try with HTTP servlet, since we have seen two examples. Is it fine?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, the next tag that we are going to discuss is um, load on startup tag. Okay, so I have that in the notes, but it will be too much for you if I want to read it. Okay, it is load on startup. So what is this load on startup, and what is the use of this load on startup? Okay, and this is an important question, interview question also. So load on startup is, I mean, if you are 1-2 years of experience in web application development, not beyond 4, because this is a very basic question. So load on startup is a tag, or it is actually helpful in creating the object of a servlet. For example, see, when is the object created? If you look at the console, for the first servlet, okay, I've overridden an init method here. If you see, okay, let's change this to something else. First servlet, web.xml file, login, and then username. We'll put it home. Okay, so since this is our first one, we'll put it home for now. And then what what is happening when you send a request to this servlet from this home. Okay, we'll see that. We'll stop. So in init method, please see that there's a statement says init method is called automatically, so we're not calling it. Okay, so we'll go here, click on run on server. It is asking me the server. I said finish. Okay, it is starting. Okay, it started. Okay, so now we got this home page again. Here we are giving some passwords and username. So when I click on submit, what happens? The submit page is now linked to .home, which is the first servlet. Okay, so now what I'm going to try to tell you is the init method will be called at the time of the creation of the object. For example, the servlet object is being created, and then only once the init method will be called. Okay, and later on only the service method will be called, because already the object is there in the Java memory. It will not call init method. Only first time, if the object is not ready, if the object is not created already, then init method will be called, and you can see the init method is called automatically print in the console whenever you send a request. So in our case, what do you think, or when is the time that this first servlet object is created? Okay, so the answer for this is whenever the user sends a request to this particular servlet. In our case, when is it going to happen? Whenever the user clicks on submit, the /home will be called, and then the control will go to the first servlet. The Tomcat will take the control to first servlet. It will check whether the object is created or not. If it is not created, then it will create the object. At the same time, the init method will also be called, and we'll see this message in the console. Okay, so we'll do that now, and you have to remember that whenever I click on it, it's gonna create the object. Okay, so it's already started. We'll stop the server and we'll start again. We'll stop. We'll start it. So in the console, you don't see init method now. There's I'll maximize this. There's no init method. If there is any sysout system.out.println, it will be black in color. All this red is the console from server. Okay, so now we got this. I click on this one. Is called, and then in the console init method is being called. Okay, and the username and password, these are coming from the service method. This is we don't need that now, but init method is being called whenever the request is coming, because we want to create an object only at the time of request happening. But there will be some cases, for example, in first servlet you are trying to connect to a database. What will happen? So in this kind of situations, whenever you want to connect to a database, or whenever you want to perform some activities prior sending the request, or whenever you want to create a file, read a file, or any other thing, any extra thing that you want to do from your servlet, what you can do is, instead of wasting time for the creation of the object, what you can do is, you can tell Tomcat that, hey Tomcat, for this servlet, I want you to create the object at the time of server startup itself. Okay, that means I will tell Tomcat. How can I tell? The only way you can communicate with Tomcat is using web.xml file. Okay, so now we know that web.xml file will have to say to Tomcat that this servlet object will be created or should be created at the time of server startup, not at the time of request coming up to the server, because sometimes you can keep the servlets as it is. Sometimes they can come at the request point only. The init method or the object creation can happen. But some places where you want to connect to database, which is going to take little amount of time, which will not take hours, but it will take little amount of time. So that time you can avoid, like you can improve the user experience by decreasing the response time by doing these kinds of things. So whenever I want to access the DB, what I'll do is I'll get the connection object or I'll connect to the DB at the startup itself, server startup itself. There's no harm in doing that. So in order to achieve that, you have to write something in the web.xml file. That is nothing but load on startup. So if you read the meaning now, load this servlet when you start up. Okay, so it is like that. I never interpreted like this, but it is easy to remember that now. Okay, so now okay, Aditya, what is the advantage of doing that? How it will be happening? So now, as I've told you, in web.xml file, this load on startup value will be given at the servlet tag. Okay, so I take, okay, I take load on startup tag. Okay, and now what will be the input for this? So okay, just is it enough just to give the load on startup tag for loading the or creating the object at the time of server startup? No, I would say no, because there is a particular value that you need to give to load on startup. See, if you see any other tag in web.xml file, see, even display name has some value, servlet name has some value, class has some value, URL pattern has some value, welcome file has some value. So in the same manner, you have value for load on startup that is nothing but an integer, which is a positive integer. Okay, now you may get a lot of questions, but hold them. So now the first question that you get in your mind is, for example, Aditya, there are 10 servlets in my project, and I've given uh, load on startup value for each and everything, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, if you have many. So what is the priority that it will be given a chance? So if it is in an increasing or decreasing order, the 0th element will be given the most priority for creation of the object. That means 0 being the highest, which are positive values, okay, not negative. So 0 being the highest, whatever value you give beyond that, the object will be created in the next, I mean, it will be created at the server startup itself, but the priority will be given to those numbers which are very less, till 0. Okay, so that is the priority. And Aditya, what happens if the next question is, Aditya, what happens if I mention 2 servlets with the same load on startup? Okay, for that also we have a question. It depends on the server how the web.xml file is rendered. Some XML files are rendered from top to bottom, and whenever they come across the first tag as load on startup, it will directly go and check for the other things whether this is lesser or not, and then it will go and create the object. If there is another tag with the same load on startup, it comes in a sequential way depending on the Tomcat rendering of the XML file. Okay, so those are the 2 questions which you'll get commonly, but if you have any other questions you can ask me. But load on startup value is simple. It takes time to explain it, but it is very simple. You just mention the value for the servlet for the object to get created at the time of server startup. So now we have done that, and we're going to save it. So, and that comes under only servlet tag, so that we have seen here. Now the first servlet, the init method, we have to see when it will be called. So we're going to stop the server for now. Okay. Okay, we're going to start it again, but let's have a look at the console. Now if you see, the init method is called automatically is done at the time of server startup itself. That means the object is created at the time of server startup itself. Maybe no, you may ask, please show me the screen now. I'll see whether there is any performance improvement. There'll be nothing, because it's just a screen, right? You'll not be looking at. But when you have multiple, servlets and multiple things that you are doing in your web application, then you may observe the lag in that. You may find at least 1 or 2 seconds, but that 1 or 2 seconds is huge in web applications. Okay, because let's take a simple example. You are doing some online transaction, and if it is late by 5 seconds, you'll be very tensed, whatever amount may be. So you will think that the transaction may fail, or this kind of things happens, right? So for that reason, we have to make sure that everything is perfect and it is not consuming the time. So in the same manner, we'll discuss about some of the other tags for now. But I have already sent the examples to Shiva and the video too. So he will be sharing you the examples with you. So I guess everybody install Eclipse and Tomcat as of now. So I want you to, you know, uh, do the HTTP servlet implementation and tell me what problems you face. I'm sure if you try, you'll face problems for the first time. So I'm looking for that. Okay. So we'll call it a day for now. And if you have any question, ask me. Whatever we have discussed till now. No questions? That's great. You're good students. Okay. Shiva,
Yes,
you there by any chance?
anyone ask any questions and what do you want to add? Like, no questions?
Aditya.
It means either
Yeah.
you are a good, you people are good students or I'm a good
What is
lecturer.
actually server mapping in brief, not in detail, but in brief.
Servlet mapping. What do you mean servlet mapping?
Yeah, I mean, are there any means of automatically mapping the servlet, or they have to manually map the servlet every time?
Idiot.
See, web.xml file is the only way you can map a servlet to a URL pattern. I'm not clear with the code. What do you mean mapping?
Like you have used home and URL pattern to map the servlet. Like if you
Right.
go to the web.xml, yeah. In that there's a servlet mapping tag, and in that you have mentioned the name and the URL pattern. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know like how exactly it works, how the system is taken and how it maps. Is there any theory behind that?
See, that is actually done by Tomcat.
Okay, so server manager services.
Yeah, that's what you need to know. No one is gonna ask you in any interview, tell me how the URL mapping is done. Because I can say I don't know it, but if you still want it, I can get the information, which is
Oh, that's fine.
gonna
So
confuse you more.
no, I was just
Yeah, I mean, see, that's a good question actually. You want to know how the server is implementing it, but that's related to server. And with that, you may have lots of questions. How is the load on startup value giving 0 is creating the object at the time of server startup? But that is not gonna end. Seriously, I mean, I'm not convincing you. I'm pushing myself. So how it is done, I don't care. Tomcat is there to manage the development process.
yeah, right.
And the request object. See, we have seen an example, right? So how this form is being sent to the, I have given it in HTML in my browser. How come it is picking up my username and password to the server which is running locally, or to any server which is deployed in somewhere? So that part, that is the reason, this HTTP servlet comes into picture, and it will do all the stuff for us. That way we use HTTP servlet. And there are some rules and regulations which are maintained by the servers and at the same time by the browsers, so that the internal implementation actually works fine. If it is not there, you cannot do it, with less effort. Okay, so that is the reason all these things, are better if you don't know it.
3D phone.
But I'm sure you'll find answers. Even if you find answer for this also, later you may think, once you get more experience in this, I don't care now. Who cares what load on startup does? Or if I give one here, still it'll create an object for me at the time of server startup. So it's all server implementation. You still want to know? Then just tell me. I'll look at it and I'll try my max to get you the answer.
No, that's fine. I just had this question coming up in my mind. That's it.
Yeah, I understand that. Basically, initially by looking at all these things, because a lot of things, happen in the undercover. When you start working, you will get to know. But once you get into the main, you will get to know. But initially, by looking at all these things, because a lot of things, happen in the undercover. When you start working, you will get to know. So these things comes into everybody's mind. Even I got it when I was listening for the first time or reading it for the first time. How come even I don't want to listen to that if I don't understand it wholly? Because load on startup, okay, you told me it is 0. What happens if I give 5 here? If there is no other servlet, still it will create it for me. So those questions will will worry once you get so much experience on the technology.
Okay, sure. Maybe if I practice more, I can answer those.
No. See, you practice, but still you will have the question. Even I am practicing for the last couple of years. I have the question, but I never actually Google it because see, no one actually cares about how the Tomcat is running
Okay.
because it is the server implementation that is being handled by Tomcat server. And there are some rules to follow that. If you want to achieve that, you have to follow this. For example, this URL pattern, if I don't mention slash here, what will happen? Okay, this will not be able, it will not be able to identify what is gonna happen if you don't give slash. So that rule, give the slash at the URL pattern, is set by Tomcat. So you will follow that.
So that's a protocol setup for the server. Yeah.
Exactly, that's a protocol setup for the everything. So load on startup, I say you give only plus. Why don't I give minus? You may ask me. You give minus. I don't know what happens because as a developer, I should always think about positive things. So I'll give positive. I'll never try with negative. Maybe in interview they'll ask such type of silly questions. I don't understand why. If you give negative, what will happen? You will never give negative. Why would I give it? I would definitely say that.
Yeah.
If I go to an interview, because that is practically not possible. You have to think in a developer way, or at the time of starting it's fine, you give negative value, it's fine, but in interview it's not. So yeah, so interview aside, so these things, you have to follow some things like this load on startup you take, you can't give it outside the class. It is not possible, it will not take it. So that is a rule. You have to set it for a servlet. See, if I give it outside, it's an error. Yeah, so it is saying according to all this this DTDs and XMLNS, it is not a correct XML format, so we'll just remove it. Why? I don't know.
Okay, got you.
Okay, yeah. See, again, I'm telling you again and again, I'm not convincing you, I'm just telling you these are the rules, boss. Follow that. And it gets more complicated. I mean to say, not complicated. These configurations are more if you take Spring and Hibernate. Even I still don't understand what is happening there, but you follow. And it's not good to know also. It's I'm not able to explain it more clearly.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Just had a random doubt. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Good that you have some doubt in your mind and you asked me without hesitation. That's good.
Yeah.
So any other doubts or questions? Anybody from the group? Only one question.
Not at this time. Maybe on-site practice. Maybe practice.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear. So you practice, you get some doubts. So next class I want to hear some questions, because unless you practice, you will not get questions. It will be all clear and very easy for you. But you write one line of code, then suddenly you will get 10 doubts. Okay, so that's a good point. And we'll call it a day. Thanks a lot, and we'll meet in the next session.
Thanks. See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you.
Yeah.